Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 15, I think, of my Fire Emblem 6 hard mode chapter guide. Today we're going to be looking at chapter 11B, which is the last chapter of the route split that we've been looking at for the past handful of parts. This chapter is not my favorite chapter in the game. I know I've been pretty jovial, I guess, about the previous couple of chapters. 11A, as I said, is my favorite chapter in the game. This chapter is a little more straightforward, but also a little bit more tedious. As you can see, there are two ballistas, one of which is in the middle of a bunch of mountains and has a massive range. So it's hard to say this chapter is that much fun, but it is pretty straightforward. There is something at the very end that we're going to need to be discussing that's pretty annoying with the reinforcements, but for the most part, what you see is what you get. There is going to be a unit that's going to spawn over here that we're going to want to recruit. So that's something to keep in mind. And baiting out the ballistas is really important. There's also 3 new units on this chapter. You don't have to bring anyone specific for the units. However, I will say that Roy needs to recruit Geese, who's going to spawn down here. And he also needs to recruit Bartrey, who's going to spawn over here. Now, Fur can also recruit Bartrey, so it's important potentially to split up if you want to recruit both. Now, in our case, Fur is not trained at all, so that might be kind of difficult, but that's where baiting out the ballistas is really important. But for the most part, you don't need anyone specific for this chapter. As I said, all the characters are recruited by Roy, or we just get when we start the chapter. But we are going to be bringing Fur because, as I said, if you want to recruit both of them, it's pretty easy to do with Fur. You just have to be really careful with her. So the setup for this chapter is, I would say, pretty straightforward, which is you're going to want to bait out the ballistas. So this is a fairly slow chapter. There's a lot of, and we'll be getting into this as we progress, a lot of like boltings and stuff in chapters that it's just kind of better to bait out. So this game can get bogged down just a touch, but yeah, baiting out the ballistas, and then as I said, Geese is going to spawn from here, so Roy's going to want to go down there, and then Fur is going to want to go over here to try to get down here and recruit Bartrey. So I'll take care of some of the preps, and then we're going to be getting a character once we start the chapter, so I'll come back and talk about him when that happens. Alright, so I just finished my preps and started the chapter. The first thing I want to talk about is our new character. Now, Elfin is essentially the same as Lalum, which is the dancer that we got on the previous chapter that we looked at, so there's not a ton to say with him. I could be wrong about this because I've never actually compared them, but I'm pretty sure all their stats are identical. Not that stats on dancers are that important. He does come with a robe and a blue gem, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, he's basically the identical character. It's just the dancer on this route. The other thing is these villagers. Now, I don't think you lose if all the villagers die, but if they all stay alive, you actually get a energy ring. There is a unit in Bartrey who's going to spawn and protect the villagers in a second here. But I wouldn't worry too much about the villagers. I mean, we do want to get Fur over here, as I said, to recruit Bartrey. But it's not like an energy ring is, well, it's not even a promotion item. It is useful, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. But just be aware that you can potentially get that. So like I said, I'm going to have our stronger team, Lance Allen, and then Lou as our healer, kind of go this direction. There's a pretty scary berserker here, so just be aware of that. And then everyone else probably go south. If you do have really strong Pegasus Knights, obviously our, Shannon's still level 1 and our Tate's also base level, but if they're really strong, you can potentially go kill this guy. That's why this shaman is here, just to kind of protect this ballista. You can also potentially do something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, they make it really annoying because you can't actually, even if you dance with your new dancer, or barded with your new bard, I guess, right here, you still couldn't get to here, so you have to take a ballista shot. But if you have a stronger Thanny, that is a possibility. Obviously, as I said, we're not going to be doing it, but it is a strategy that you can utilize if you don't want to bait out all the ballistas, as we're going to have to do. So I'm going to start doing that, and then I'll probably come back when Geese, or probably when Bartrey shows up. I'll talk about that. Okay, so just a few things that I wanted to mention. Bartrey has not shown up, neither has Geese, but I just want to mention that this ballista, even though it is in range of these citizens, again, I don't know exactly how this AI works, but I believe if you put somebody in its range, it will attack your units. I don't know if it'll attack the citizens if it's only in the citizens' range, but just be aware that, because this looks impossible, right? He'll just snipe off the citizens. But he's been, attacking Marcus and stuff, so just be aware of that. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, I don't know why I didn't mention this at the time, but I would highly recommend using the robe on Elfin, because he will 100% get one shot by the ballistas here. And it's not just here, but he'll get one shot by everything with his, 15 base HP. So I would highly recommend doing that. I think it's a great idea. Also, even though I recommend giving the first robe to Roy, there are going to be a lot of more opportunities for robes. We'll talk about this when we get to the member card, but I wouldn't worry too much about splurging on robes. If anything, by the end of the game, we're going to be giving Elfin like 5 more robes, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But yeah, just a few things I wanted to mention. And like I said, they're going to be heading up this way. I believe there are some reinforcements to show up or something like that, and some merch stuff is going to show up from down there, so we'll talk about that more when we get there. But yeah, you definitely want to clear these guys out, because everyone will run one round these citizens. Okay, so I just wanted to come back and talk about a few of the developments from the chapter. I just want to mention one of the things are druids. We're going to be getting into this a lot as we fight more and more druids. I wouldn't say druids become like a super regular enemy for a while, but these incredibly high magic druids do become a regular enemy in sort of the later stages of the game. Let me tell you, 30 damage flux, the hit is quite bad, but you have to be really careful, especially when characters like Lance and, well, not Marcus, because we're not going to be using him, but like Alan have really bad resistance, so just be really careful with units like this. They're really, really tough. The other thing is, Geese did show up. He shows up on turn 6, I believe, which is the turn after the ballistas run out, basically, if you've been having them use their ballista on every turn. He is going to go fight these pirates. I'm a little bit behind schedule here, so I was trying to like surround an archer and do something with Tate. I don't know why. But he can hold his own at least for a little bit, so I wouldn't be too worried about him. But you do want to come down here because these pirates are going to try to destroy this house, and obviously you want to avoid that. Alright, so we recruited Geese. I just want to mention, just like always, if you put a unit in the range of like pirates or brigands or whoever's trying to destroy houses, they will always, I believe, always prioritize your own units. So in spots like this where you're like, oh man, how do I get the pirate to not attack the village? Just put someone in range. But we did recruit Geese. He's essentially the same as he is on the other route, same level, same stats, same everything, except, and this is kind of weird, oh, I actually thought... Okay, never mind. He is the same everything. He doesn't come with the Brave Axe. For some reason, I thought his weapon rank wasn't actually high enough to use it, but it is. So he's identical. Okay. So still a pretty terrible unit. Obviously, recruiting him on the B route doesn't really change anything. I don't know where you get the Brave Axe. I think Bartrey might come with it. You just get it under different means, because he comes with it, obviously, on the A route. But yeah, unfortunately, he's not a very good unit. He doesn't have a super strong Gonzalez on this chapter to show him up, but... yeah, he's just, I would not recommend using him. Unfortunately, his stats are just pretty low, and Berserker's not the best class in the world in this game. So at this point, we're pretty much clearing up everything. There's 2 more things I want to talk about in this chapter, but we have to kind of wait until they spawn, so I'll come back when that happens. Okay, so Bartrey just spawned. He spawns from up here with 2 units, and they're basically going to go try to fight the boss. Now, I'm not really sure that these hand axe fighters are going to do that well against the boss or his mercenary allies, but whatever. We'll leave him to it. This guy's actually got a lance trigger, so it might do okay. At this stage, it kind of depends on where you're at as far as the chapter is concerned. Obviously, if like the druid, for example, will destroy him and his men, but he can also do decent against the druid. It depends on how fast you've been. In this situation, obviously, we can do a pretty easy recruit here. And as I said at the start of the chapter, this is why bringing Fur and Roy is so good. You can recruit him with Roy, but... So this is Bartrey, basically the parallel to Echidna, who's the character that we recruited on the last chapter. Actually really similar. It's crazy how they replicated it. Really similar to what a level 2 warrior Bartrey would look like in actual Fire Emblem 7. Now, as I said, he does come with the Brave Axe. I do think that Bartrey is a much better unit than Echidna, just because, like, even though he has low speed, he won't get doubled, at least at this stage, whereas Echidna kind of will. And even though axes kind of suck, bows are actually quite good in this game, and 22 strength means that he hits really hard. When you couple that with 48 HP, that's a lot of HP. Even though his defense and resistance aren't, like, the best in the world, Bartrey's a really strong tempo unit and will be a really nice sort of utility unit, whether you're hitting with the axes or the bows for a while. Whereas Echidna, I think, is a bit weaker. So if you're looking at these 2 characters as a reason to potentially go either the A route or the B route, I would highly recommend Bartrey, because I think he's a much stronger unit. And also a lot better than Geese, because everyone's got to show up Geese, you know. But yeah, just 48 HP and 22 strength is really all you need to know at this stage in the game with Bartrey. I don't think there's any reason to keep his resistance fighters alive. I don't think you get anything, so probably just let them die. I mean, they are going to go suicide into the boss. Um, so yeah, there's one more thing that I want to mention, and that's the reinforcements that are going to appear near the boss. Now, I hate these reinforcements, and every time I do this chapter, I seem to lose units. My recommendation is just from turns like 11 to 19, something like that. I know that's kind of boring, but just stay away from this area, because basically what happens is a random assortment of units in a random assortment of like a bunch of tiles will just spawn on enemy phase and go attack your units. And it's really hard to stand around the boss because you really have no idea what's about to spawn or where they're about to spawn. I don't think there's a rhyme or reason to this. There might be more information out there on this. But yeah, I've had tons of times where I have like units here and then randomly a unit will spawn here or something along those lines. So my recommendation is just to kind of keep units over here and maybe keep units up here and just bait out the reinforcements. But I'll talk about that more probably when they start to spawn. For the time being, I'm going to clean up the last couple of units that are roaming around the chapter. Okay, so at this point, the reinforcements have started. Basically, what happened was 2 fighters just kind of spawned randomly. I'll probably show the next turn to see like where the reinforcements spawn from. This resistance fighter, I don't even know what their AI is telling them to like do. They actually didn't attack anyone. They just like went here and here. This guy got slaughtered by this guy, and this guy got attacked by the boss. I really don't know what these guys are doing, but they're getting destroyed. Unsurprisingly, they're pretty weak, obviously. So yeah, as I said, just be careful of the reinforcements. I'll probably put these 2 up here, and then I'll probably hold this bridge with these units. And we'll see how that goes. Okay, so before I end the turn, I just want to show where the reinforcements are going to spawn. As you can see, it seems like it's in a random assortment of units, and it's a random like tiles around the boss. So it's not that big a deal, but again, my recommendation is just to stay away from the boss, because this will keep happening again until turn 19. There's really nothing you can do about it. So you're really just putting units in danger if you move them up, especially units. This is where like healers and like dancers and stuff can get in a lot of danger, because if suddenly like a hand axe fighter spawns in a place you didn't expect, it can be a big problem. And as you can see, all the villagers escaped, which means that we are going to get the energy ring, which is kind of nice. One of the things that I also want to mention about these reinforcements is that a lot of them are mercenaries. And mercenaries, I mean, if you've made it this far, you probably understand just how strong these units are. Look at those stats. These units are not weak. It's really hard to double them. They can double really consistently. They hit hard. They also take hits well, 9 defense. They're way stronger than like these fighters. And also archer spawn with steel bows. So a lot of times, if you have a unit too close, potentially like my Rucker actually took a bunch of damage. Potentially, if you take a hit from like a steel sword and a steel bow, even your bulkier units can just like die for free. So definitely be careful when doing this. For me, it's turn 16, so we have a few more turns to go. And then I'll talk about the boss when we get there. He actually has an interesting assortment of weaponry. I didn't realize he had a Horse Slayer, Silver Axe, and a Javelin. That's very interesting. Okay, one other thing to worry about, because you can see Deke just died to a 1% crit from these mercenaries. I did just make a save state because I am playing this kind of fast, but so Deke is not dead for us. But I will just mention there is a lot of crit on these units. I mean, 8 doesn't seem like a lot, but a lot of units have barely 8 luck or less than 8 luck in the case of like Rucker. So definitely be careful. I didn't have to necessarily attack this guy with Deke, but be super careful with this kind of stuff. So I'm gonna reload my save state and we'll keep going here. But just be aware, you can lose units for no reason like that. Crits happen. 1% crits? Like 50%. Alright, so we've finally done cleaning up the reinforcements. I just want to say this one more time. I know I've already said it a bunch of times, but do not take the reinforcements lightly. If you get too close, your units can die very easily, so just be aware of that. But at this point, it's just the boss. As I mentioned, his assortment of weapons is interesting. There's a couple of different pretty easy ways to deal with him. Obviously, Rucker does pretty good, as always, if you have the Armor Slayer. We also have Lou, who looks pretty good as well. His resistance is actually not bad, but obviously Lou can still do quite well, and he just has a Javelin, so I think we're going to have Lou stand here and probably Rucker as well. We'll do some healing, and we'll figure it out. But yeah, this boss, it's just a Javelin. It's just a Javelin. It's just a general, not particularly hard to kill. So I'll probably come back once I've killed him. Okay, so I just did a combination. He attacked Lou, and then Rucker took him out. I have finally promoted Rucker on this playthrough. We have him promoted, of course, on the other playthrough. I made mention of when we promoted him. This is a pretty late promotion for Rucker. I would highly recommend doing this earlier. I've just been kind of training like Deke a little bit more. As you can see, Deke is fairly strong, not nearly as good as Rucker, but okay. And you get another Hero's Crest, so not a bad unit to train. But yep, that is the end of 11B. As you can see, we should be getting our Compliment him in his mustache. We should be getting our energy ring. Perfect. So next time we're going to be back together with our files. No more of this route split. The next handful of chapters are, I think, a bit easier. But yeah, that was the route split for this game, or at least for the early chapters. I hope everybody enjoyed, and I will see you next time.